Courage is a muscle. Courage can mean the difference between taking a risk that expands your life and staying in a situation that keeps you small. Luckily, like all other muscles, courage is something that can be built, that can be worked on, and Hekate wants to help you build that muscle. Hello lovelies, welcome back to Squeaky's Cauldron, or welcome if this is your first time here. I'm your host, Sarah Evergreen. I am a coach specializing in shadow work, boundary work, inner child work, and working with deities. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited today, getting back into the swing of things after a little break for the holidays. You've got my slightly wet new hairdo to grace your screens today. And we are going to be talking about Hekate's key of courage that unlocks the gate of fear. Before we jump in, as always with any video on Hekate that I do, I like to offer an opening prayer. If you would like to join in this prayer with me, please make yourself comfortable. If this is not really your bag, feel free to just skip forward a couple of minutes. Either way, it's fine with me. So if you are joining me, allow yourself to settle into this moment a little bit. If you are comfortable doing so and safe doing so, go ahead and close your eyes. Okay. Hail Hekate, Queen of Witches. Our journeys are so blessed. Each key you grant us unlocks great power. Grateful we are for all your keys. The key of connection, which reminds us we are not alone. The key of solitude, in which we may come home to ourselves. The key of acceptance for that which we cannot change. The key of courage to face and overcome adversity. The key of desire, which brings us closer to you. The key of vision, so that we might move freely. The key of honesty, which brings us peace. The key of curiosity, so that we might live lives of truth and joy. And the key of devotion. Hekate, I live my life in service to you. Guide me. Make me ready. Illuminate my next right step. Help me to see more clearly and align more fully with my highest purpose and my highest self, so that I might better serve you, serve myself, and serve those around me. Aho. Thank you if you joined in with the prayer, and thank you for honoring your boundaries if you decided to skip forward. So on to the key of courage and the gate of fear. We'll start out with the gate of fear, exploring a little bit about what I mean by this. We're not looking to go into a state of fearlessness. That doesn't actually exist. And when it does exist, we start navigating the realms of sociopathy and other personality disorders. What we're looking for is the ability to unlock the gate of fear when we encounter it, which we will always encounter. There's a great quote by Robert Heinlein, a science fiction author that has some dubious things in his books, but I love him. He says, "Courage is the complement of fear. A man who is fearless cannot be courageous, and is also a fool." What this means to me is that when we are evoking courage, it's not because there's nothing to fear. It's because we see the fear and we decide to move through it anyway, bravely, with our shoulders back and our heads up. Whenever we move out of our comfort zones, fear goes with us. It's just a natural passenger in the car. If you're familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert's amazing book, Big Magic. If you're not familiar with it, please go read it. It's great. But she talks about fear as being exactly that, a passenger in the car. And so often what we do is allow fear to sit in the driver's seat because fear is so fucking loud. But the thing is, fear only says one thing. It says no, no, stop, no, no, no. This is not okay, stop, 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 which is great because that's its job. That's exactly its job. It is there to keep us safe, but it is an incredibly blunt instrument that doesn't have a lot of nuance or context available to it. All it's doing is responding to a heightened sense of excitement or change and being like, nope, I already know how things work right now in this space, and that's where we're safe, and that's where I'm going to keep you. It works within the comfort zone. And I'll show a little graphic here about the comfort, the stretch, and the panic zones, because this is a really important concept, I think, to live in and live with. So when we have the comfort zone right in the middle, fear's great in here. It's like, okay, I'll stay relatively quiet, it's going to be fine. Of course, anxiety and depression do change that, but generally speaking, inside the comfort zone, fear's relatively quiet. Then you move into the stretch zone, and this is when fear starts piping up and saying, no, this is not okay, we're feeling threatened. And then outside of the stretch zone is the panic zone. And in the panic zone, of course, fear is just basically screaming. When we live just inside the comfort zone, that circle starts to shrink. We draw our comfort zone closer and closer to ourselves. This is why you can see, for example, if you've been living in fear, the world shrinks according to that fear. When you move into that stretch zone, you begin to see that you're not going to die by doing something that's a bit scary. And then your comfort zone grows bigger. Thing is, either way, your comfort zone does not stay static. It will either grow or shrink in proportion to the amount of courage that you are exercising in your life. Now, when you go from the comfort zone way out into the panic zone, an interesting thing happens, because you get out there, you realize it's panic zone, all the alarm bells are going off, you jump back into the comfort zone, and the comfort zone shrinks. So we want to move into the stretch zone. We want to use this key of courage to step into that space so that that too grows bigger and bigger and pushes the panic zone out farther and farther, but without jumping into the panic zone and causing a nervous breakdown, honestly, to some degree or another. Going back to Elizabeth Gilbert's analogy of fear as a passenger in a car, what she says she does is she allows the passenger to be there. She allows the fear to be there because you can't just chuck it out of the car. That's not an option. But fear sits in the back seat. Fear doesn't get to choose the snacks. Fear doesn't get to choose the radio station. And sure as hell, fear doesn't get to choose the destination. But she makes space for it, allows it to exist, to be acknowledged, and in many cases to be loved for what it's doing and doing so very, very well, which is, again, trying to protect you. Being locked in the gate of fear can feel like a lot of different things, and I'm sure you're very familiar with it. It can feel like constantly adjusting yourself to move towards what you think other people think about you, people-pleasing tendencies. It can look like making plans for projects or trips and then never following through, perfectionism in any damn shape, procrastination in any damn shape. Those are both fear. Perfectionism is based in the fear that we're not going to do it right. And procrastination is often based in the fear that we are going to do it right, and then what are we going to do with ourselves? This gate is often built and armed in childhood. Anytime we take a risk, do something outside of the ordinary, and it doesn't work out, and we're not held in that experience, we're not recognized in that experience, that will start building the gate of fear. That will start putting the battlements up. And anytime that we are listening to our parents or other people in authority positions talk about risks in a way that is fear-centered, we bring that in. We soak that up, especially up to the age of 7. We just sop it all up in our alpha wave brain state. And that too will build that gate of fear. So that when we face a risk, or when we face having done something wrong, or even the potential of doing something wrong, then we get locked in that fear. So what does Hekate have to do with all of this? Well, she's a badass. She is courageous. She goes into the depths of hell to help Persephone, not to fix the situation, because she recognizes that she can't fix the situation, but to give Persephone a light in the darkness so that she too can move into her stretch zones and grow her comfort zone so that she can be in the underworld, so that she can be the bride of Hades and really blossom in this way and be able to move from place to place. Hekate gives her a sense of safety and grounding in that space, thus imbuing her with her own courage. And she can do the same for us by showing us that this darkness is not all dark, that there is a lantern that we can light for ourselves and that we can find in her and her presence. I have another quote from an author that I love dearly, who's also mildly problematic, Anais Nin. She says that life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. And I covered this a bit in the previous section talking about the gate of fear, but I just want to double down on it here. Life shrinks or expands in relation to one's courage. When you build that muscle, your life gets bigger. Bigger courage equals bigger life. You can go after opportunities that feel right. You can say no to things that don't feel right, but might be a little bit scary to say no to. Setting those boundaries, that is a thing that takes immense courage. Being able to say, this relationship is not working for me, and I'm going to remove myself from it, takes a lot of courage. And it can be, so incredibly life-changing and life-affirming and life-expanding to remove yourself from situations that aren't working and to pursue situations that feel good and juicy. I travel full-time. I have spent the last year and a half going around Europe, the Middle East, and England now for quite some time. And I have this YouTube, and I had a podcast, still have a podcast, and I've done all these things that people often tell me, oh, you're so brave. And the thing is, I have not always felt like that. I still often don't feel like I'm that brave. But the reason for that, I think, is because I have expanded my comfort zone so much and my stretch zone so much that it takes a lot for me to get into the panic. And a lot of the things that maybe Sarah of 6 or 7 years ago, or even Sarah of a year and a half ago, before I bought the ticket to go to Greece, that Sarah would have been like, what? That's crazy. We can't possibly do that. There's too much fear there. Hey lovelies, I just wanted to jump in real quick before sharing this next little piece of video and preface it a bit. So I was going through old photos and videos looking for something that I could use that kind of exemplified who I was and where I was before I went on this particular trip that's lasted the last year and a half. And I stumbled across this little gem. And the reason that I'm including it, part of it at least, is I really want you to see the difference between the Sarah then and the Sarah now. All of that is because of the work that I talk about with Hekate's keys and in my other videos. And I wanted you to be able to see with your own eyes what a difference these practices can make. Okay, I love you and enjoy. Hi, my name is Sarah. On the solstice of 2020, I made the intention to spend the winter season in healing, focusing on my healing. I haven't done a great job of that so far, and I am my heart's beating really fast. I'm making this video as a way to maybe hold myself a little bit more accountable. Those things have become kind of normal now. And I know that there's a lot of things too that I still fear stepping into. And I also know that when I do make those steps, eventually that's going to become normal too. And in this way, I can just keep expanding and expanding and finding a path that is really true and unique for myself, that's not based on something that someone else says that I'm supposed to do or supposed to be like, which is really cool. And something that you have within your grasp as well. And it's not an instantaneous thing, but it's a thing that grows gradually, just like a muscle. You can't go to the gym one day and work out and then expect to be like totally ripped and strong the next day. No, it takes time. And just like going to the gym and building a muscle, it takes time to recover from moving deep into the stretch zone, because we need to be able to come back to the comfort zone, reset our nervous systems, and allow the comfort zone to grow a little bit. So I want you to tell me, either in the comments or send me an email, what is one thing you would do today if you weren't afraid of the repercussions? Just one thing. Put it out there for the world to see. Let me know. To start, open the space. Remember to cleanse, ground, and center. Open a circle if this is within your practice, and invoke Hekate to have her be with you and lending her support and her strength and her courage as you move through the practice of building this poppet. Okay, so a mundane practice to working with the gate of fear and the key of courage. I've got a couple for you today because these are very, very simple, but also very, very powerful practices, and I wanted to impart both of them to you. The first one is 5 seconds of courage. This I took from Mel Robbins. She's got some great TED Talks about courage and about moving through the fear. And this idea of 5 seconds of courage is you're facing something that scares you. Okay, it's right in front of you. What you need to do is commit to being balls to the wall courageous for just 5 seconds. 5 seconds is all it takes. For example, if you are looking at making a phone call to someone that you haven't talked to in a while, that you want to rebuild a relationship with, and the idea of picking up the phone and actually making that phone call terrifies you because you're not sure how they're going to respond. You just sit and you commit 5 seconds. Maybe dial the phone number ahead of time and then use that 5 seconds to push call and hold that phone up to your ear and then see what happens. 5 seconds. 5 seconds to send that email. 5 seconds to post that thing online. 5 seconds to buy that plane ticket or to tell someone you're not happy. 5 seconds. 5. If you commit to doing this, maybe like once a day, just moving into that space of 5 seconds of courage, you will start to see your courage muscle grow. And you're going to be amazed at what comes out of it. The next mundane practice I have for you comes from, I believe, Amy Cuddy. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it is the superhero pose or the power pose. Now, this is something that you can do before you do the 5 seconds of courage to kind of pump you up. This is also something you can do before an interview, before you have a tricky conversation with someone, before you're going to send that email, before any situation where you feel yourself getting smaller and protecting yourself. You do the superhero pose or the power pose. So, superhero pose, hands and fists, fists on hips. That's it. Maybe spread your legs a bit, roll your shoulders back and up, look up, allow your chest to open, allow your heart space to open. This is a big thing. The root of the word courage is core, which is the heart. So when you allow more space for your heart to be open, you're going to tap into more courage. And this area of your body has such intense, energetic waves coming from it, like more than our mind does and more than our gut does. This is the power spot. So giving that space. And we tend to, crunch up and hide it and protect it, and even just like being on the computer, it kind of naturally does this. So open up, put your hands on your hips, and just envision yourself as a superhero with all that courage, all that bravery. Alternatively, if this doesn't feel quite right for you, get your hands up and out like a big star and imagine yourself as exactly that, a big, bright star that is just shining your beauty and your courage and your power into the universe, and allow yourself to really soak that in. Do it for like 30 seconds and I guarantee you're going to feel a difference. This is also great to do if you're just having a shitty day and you feel like, nope, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do any of the things. Just do this for 30 seconds and then go back to bed. That's fine. I just want you to start to move your physiology just a little bit into the direction of heart expansion, courage expansion. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one around shadow work, boundary work, inner child work, or working with deities, please check out my coaching offer in the show notes or the description below and schedule a discovery call today. Discovery calls are free, 20 minutes, just to see if we can vibe with one another and how I can help you. Again, that link is in the show notes, and I am looking forward to hearing from you. Now on to the magical practice for working with the key of courage to unlock the gate of fear. Today we're going to be making a fear poppet. So what you'll need is a little bit of clay. I prefer air dry, but if all you have access to is Sculpey, that's totally fine. It'll just take a couple extra steps because you'll have to fire the little poppet that you make. You'll need a pen and paper, a fireproof dish, some kind of flame, and a pair of tweezers or something to hold a piece of paper as it burns. Start by opening the space, cleansing, grounding, centering, cast a circle if this is in your practice, and invoke Hekate to have her be with you and lending her support and her strength and her courage as you move through the practice of building this poppet. Once you've got all of that set up, I want you to take the little piece of paper and write down what you are fearing. Be specific. Whatever it is that's stopping you from going after something you want, get that down in black and white on the paper. And then hold the paper in your right hand and really allow yourself to feel that fear. Allow yourself to locate it in your body and then let it grow. Let it get bigger. Let it get stronger. Allow it to move throughout your entire body. Remember that you are in a safe space. You are protected. You are in a sacred holding area. So when you feel all of this, know that you are still safe and it's okay. You're holding this to send it into the paper, to charge the paper with the ferocious power of your fear. Feeling it, really feeling it, is going to be the best way to get familiar with it and to start to break down its bigness and its scariness. Once you feel like the paper is charged and you've moved a lot of energy into it, then you're going to light it on fire. And remember to collect all of the ash, because this is what we want. So take that ash and then knead it into the clay. And still, again, envision just putting all of that energy into the clay as you're kneading it and really imbuing this piece of clay with that fear. And then from there, you're going to create some little representation of the fear. Allow the shape to come through your hands and have faith that the shape that it takes is the shape that it needs to take. And when you feel like you've gotten to a point where, yeah, this looks like my fear, this feels right, then you're going to either let it air dry if you have that clay, or you're going to fire it if you have Sculpey. At this point, you can close your circle, give thanks to Hekate for joining you in this process, and you have two options for your poppet. One is that you can bury it far away and just kind of move that fear, that particular fear, far away from you, held by the earth. The other option is that you can keep it close. And the benefit of doing this is that you now have essentially a little totem that embodies your fear. that's outside of yourself, that you can talk to, that you can hide on occasion if that's what needs to happen. But it's something that is then a visual representation rather than just having it move all around in your body, so that when you feel that, you can send it into the puppet. This is my preferred option, but you need to do what feels right for you. So I want you to remember, fear is not your enemy. Fear is a passenger that is always going to be with you, especially when you're doing things that you really want to do, that feel really special, because it's different, it's change, and fear is going to be right along beside you, but it doesn't have to rule your life. And now you have some practices to navigate that fear and some understanding around how fear works. To go a little deeper with this, check out this meditation I made on meeting Hekate and accepting that key of courage from her. Before I leave you, I want to know in the comments, tell me, what is the most courageous thing you have ever done? Okay, my lovelies, take care of yourselves, and until next time, as always, use your voice.